Please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
All right, hi everybody. Welcome to Axios House at UNGA and Climate Week. I'm Dave Lawler, a Deputy Managing Editor at Axios. Really excited to welcome those of you who are in the room and following along online. And if you are following online, you can use the hashtag AxiosHouse. Really excited to welcome you to this conversation about how young people can build healthy habits, meaningful connections, and digital boundaries online. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first guests from the UN Office of the Special Representative of the Secretary General on Violence Against Children, Lucha Sotomayor. Lucha, thank you so much for joining Axios. We were just talking earlier about kind of the distinct perspective that you take in your work on these issues that we're talking about in terms of how to make the internet a safer place for kids, which is something that's top of mind for parents, but also society in general at the moment. Can you talk a bit about your work and how you think about tackling some of these challenges?
Okay, yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. So let me explain very quickly what we do, because I know that UN lingo and UN structure can be a bit...
That was a long title I had to read.
I know, thank you. You did great.
Thank you.
Yeah. We say, the SRSG back. That's easier. Okay. So we are an independent global advocate tasked with the goal of helping end all forms of violence against children, right? In all countries, in all settings, all forms of violence, and the violence that children experience in the digital environment is one form of violence, but it's also linked to other forms of violence, right? Unfortunately, what happens in person happens online, and they're very much connected, and we try and keep them connected and also send that message. What we do is we work with governments, with industry, with civil society, with all stakeholders who have a shared responsibility towards ending violence. And we work with the UN country teams, that's UNICEF on the ground, the different organizations on the ground that are representing the UN and are collaborating with governments on helping them, advising, guiding, supporting their work that happens on the ground, and at the same time taking the higher level advocacy through the special representative who represents, as the name says, the Secretary General and the UN, on which are the suggested steps that need to be taken forward in order to protect children. And children is anybody under the age of 18. So we hear a lot of private sector companies say youth, adolescents. We are talking about anybody under the age of 18 who have a distinctive set of rights, and that those rights also need to be respected in the digital environment and in person. So we try and make sure that happens.
And you were talking about the interplay of sort of violence online and violence in the real world. I think when we're having that conversation, we're often talking about stuff that starts online and then can come out into the world. You also focus on the other way around, right? Somebody who might be experiencing harm in the physical world, and then how do they address it online or seek help? Can you talk a little bit about what you're working on there and maybe anything you've seen that's working?
Okay, so we don't deal with cases directly, right? We work more on the higher level advocacy, and yes. So what happens in the real world happens in the online world, but also violence shifts and may take different forms, right? So, for example, a child who is being groomed online and may meet an adult, and that could end up in child trafficking, or in child labor, or in child marriage, right? In-person abuse. So part of our work is to reinforce the messaging, that we don't isolate forms of violence. We encourage states, governments to have national child protection strategies and roadmaps towards ending violence against children, and to address children's protection in a holistic way, and not say, okay, so this government department is going to be working on this, and this one is going to be working on this, but rather children experience different risks at the same time in different ways. How do we make sure that they are protected, that their rights are being respected, that they get to grow up in a safe and nurturing environment, and that harm is above all prevented and not necessarily addressed once the harm happens.
But we were also talking about ways that kids can reach out basically online using some of these platforms, right? I think you were mentioning someone who had a sort of fake cosmetics platform where you could pretend that you were ordering makeup, but actually what you were doing was you were reporting harm that you were experiencing, so there could be action. Can you talk a little bit about, because that's something that I was not familiar with before we started chatting about it.
Yes.
Like, it's not always, you don't want to just post on Facebook, hey, I'm being abused. Sometimes it has to be a little bit more discreet.
Yes, okay, so there are many parts to that question. First of all, we need to understand that children generally do not report harm, right? And violence is underreported. There are many reasons why children don't report harm, right? They could be scared, they could be threatened, they could be embarrassed, there could be stigma, or they could not know that what they're experiencing is called violence, right? That's why we have professionals in person, on the ground, who detect violence. Professionals in school, in hospitals, social workers, right? And they help identify when a child may be at risk of experiencing violence. When COVID happened, most of these services were disrupted, right? And children were no longer in touch with those who were tasked with the goal of detecting violence. And that's when the online comes as a relevant space where children can reach out for help. We saw during 2020 that Child Help International is a network of child helplines, so a 20% increase on children reaching out to their child helplines through internet means, where the access was available and where the channels were available. And we saw that children were using gaming spaces, social media, to look for help when they were at risk of experiencing harm that wasn't necessarily online harm, right? And this is one of those examples, because we saw children and young people coming up with solutions to help their peers. This was a Polish girl in 2020 created this fake cosmetic store, and you were buying makeup, but actually you were reporting some form of violence, depending on the kind of makeup or product that you were buying, the form of harm that you were looking for help around. You could even talk to a sales assistant who was a protection officer and could even connect you to the police if needed. And they had disguised ways of collecting the information, like how much, what kind of level of alcohol does your skin support, in order to identify if the abuser was under any substance that needed special attention. That's a child using the internet to create safety, right? When we look at the internet as a place that needs to be safer for children, we need to look at both of these angles. Children need to be protected from harm, and the internet today is not a safe place for children, and we need to work towards making the internet safer, and that's a work that needs to be done with ICT sector, with governments, with CSOs, towards making sure that that children get to be safe online. But on the other hand, thanks to having access to the internet, children could get the help that they need if there are services that are on the ground, connected to the online, with all the safeguards, and making sure that they are facilitating reporting for children regardless of the form of harm that they're experiencing. So we started to explore the second side, because this first angle of making the internet safer is being approached. We are continually working on it. It's being approached by governments, by states. The UN is permanently recommending. Recently, 2 years ago, the General Comment 25, the General Comment to the Conventions of the Rights of the Child, focused on how children's rights should be respected in a digital environment. It's suggesting guidelines for legislation that's happening. But this other side of the coin wasn't being totally addressed. So we started convening, in collaboration with another UN organization, the ITU, International Telecommunications Union, we started convening child helplines and other UN agencies like UNICEF, UNODC, tech companies. Roblox is speaking after me. Roblox is part of this. TikTok, Meta, Microsoft, Lego, Disney. We asked them, have you seen this happening in your platforms? Have you seen children looking for help regardless of the form of harm that they may be experiencing, and even not related to online harms? And unanimously, the response was, yes, we are seeing this is happening, and we're not entirely sure how to respond when the risks are not related to our platforms. And we convened this community and started to do what we do, research. We started to collect data and evidence, and we collected data from 83 countries of child helplines that had activated online channels, that had transitioned online, or that were born online, to understand how are children using your online channel to get help. Where's the conversation? How do you identify the issues that children need support around, and how are you working with the private sector and with governments on this? And we are about to publish the 5 principles, the 5 Ps. The online risks are 4 Cs, so these are the 5 Ps, which is very beautiful and harmonic way of presenting it. And these are principles and recommendations for policymakers, for tech companies, and child helplines on how to ensure that children get to access the help that they need through these online channels. And also, that's another way of making the internet safer, because a safe internet keeps children safe while they are online, but at the same time opens avenues for children to access safety, protection, and support.
Yeah, it's a really interesting angle. What is your responsibility, or what can you do if a kid is coming onto your platform and talking about harm that's happening, unrelated to your platform? But I want to talk about, you said there's 2 sides of the coin. I want to talk about the other side of the coin. We're both parents, although my son is a toddler, so not yet able to access the internet on his own, but probably not too far away from that. You've obviously, you're both a parent. You've also written the book on this topic about how to navigate the challenge of the dangers that your child may encounter online, or at least they're encountering a world out there that they might become more familiar with than you are as the parent. How do you, when people ask you about that, what do you tell them? What's your advice to parents who are trying to figure out what to do?
I think parents have the toughest job, definitely, because I'm a parent of 2 teenagers. They hate me when I say this. 13-year-old, 15-year-old boys, so the target audience of many of these risks, right? And we were not taught to prevent these types of risks, right? Parents naturally replicate the ways that they were brought up. So if your caregiver told you when you were growing up, wait, you need to look both ways before crossing the street. That, you replicate it, and then you tell your child, we look both ways before crossing the street, right? Nobody taught us that. I'm 43, I did not grow up with the internet, and nobody taught our generation on how to prevent and address risks online. So there's a huge digital divide. So there's been a lot of work done at country levels on equipping parents to be able to first understand the risks that children are exposed to when they are online. And fortunately, all children are exposed to risks online, which doesn't mean that the risks will turn into harm, right? But they are at risk. So how do you equip them in knowing the risks and in knowing what to do on, how to set the parental controls, how to set privacy on the devices, equipping them in understanding that it's not recommended to give devices to younger children. So there's the work that needs to be done on building parents' capacities to prevent and respond to these threats. On the other hand, how do you create and how do you help bridge the relationship where children are going to trust their parents to go to them when it's likely that children may know more than their parents, right? Not all parents are the same. Parents are in very different situations. Parents may be in a refugee camp. They may be having to work 3 jobs. They may not be literate. They may not know how the internet works. So not all parents are the same. How do you encourage that trusting relationship? This morning I was at a Tech Coalition event. Hello. Tech Coalition colleague, and Microsoft presented something very interesting regarding their findings about what children do when they are at risk online. So in 2016, their audience research showed that when children were experiencing risk or when they were at risk of experiencing harm, they would turn to their peers, which is something, it's a data that we know. Generally, children turn to other children when they are when they feel insecure, when they feel unsafe. And their latest research is showing an overwhelming shift in children turning to parents, which means that the messaging on reach a trusted adult is working. Now, how do we make sure that parents are equipped with the response, with what to do? And there are many different layers to that as well. I think also parents, are growing. I'm an older parent, you're a younger parent, you know more about technology. And there's...
Be sure about that, Lucha. Yeah, but you're very kind.
Yes. No, I think that it is happening. Younger people are becoming parents and they are closer to, when the internet started to be widespread, and they may understand more those dynamics, depending on the countries, yet, of course, and on the realities. Now, a personal advice that I give to parents, but as a parent myself, because I get asked that question, like, how do I keep my child off social media, off online games? How do I take the devices away? And it's a really challenging question because, it's not like, yeah, just take it away. You need to give an alternative. Right? You need to, if you're going to say, okay, no social media, no online games, or these are your allowed timings. What is the alternative that you give in exchange of that? In an ideal world, we can spend time with our children. We can give alternatives that are protective factors. But of course, the world, unfortunately, is not ideal. So we need to, even though we reinforce that message, we still need to circle back to the making the internet safer, right? And make sure that those children who may not have an alternative have a safe space. It's not always about how much time children spend online, but what are they not doing because they're online, right? And they may be even protected from other risks if they're doing something else online. So it's not black and white. I think giving alternatives, being part of your child's experiences, both online and offline. If your child really likes to play an online game, get to know the game, play the game, right? And sometimes as parents, we try and draw children towards our thing and what we like and what we're good at and what we can teach them, right? And I think with the online, we also need to change that narrative and be open to what can they teach me in regards to the online, and then what do I bring into that relationship? And as an adult, I'm going to bring a safer perspective. I'm going to bring safeguards. I'm going to make sure that this is a rich experience. So I think the cross-cutting recommendation, regardless of the age group or the country or the language, is be part of that. Whether it's bring them to your own offline experiences that you come up with together, and there's an alternative. But if there's not an alternative that it's attractive enough, how are you part of that space? So it always goes back to that, parent-child relationship, regardless if it's online or offline. The relationship is the substance of it, and it's going to be what you're going to transmit as a parent, ultimately, hopefully, ideally.
Lucha, we're running up short on time, but we like to end with one fun thing. You are a UN insider. Most of us are struggling to navigate New York this week, barricades, traffic, etc. Do you have any tips for the rest of us as somebody who knows UNGA Week pretty well? So
the recommendation that we get internally from security is avoid the UN. Literally is, if you don't have to go into your office this week, don't. Avoid the UN area.
Come to Axios House instead, I guess.
And also take the opportunity to meet with people who are in town as well. It's a fun week in that way, hopefully, for everybody.
I think so. Well, thank you so much, Lucha. I really appreciate it. All right. And next up, we have Axios publisher Nicholas Johnston. Thanks, everybody.
This way.
Folks, I'm Nicholas Johnston. I'm the publisher of Axios. Thanks so much for being here. We're in the midst of a ton of great conversations here at Axios House on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly and Climate Week. Very grateful for all of you joining us here and online. Also hugely grateful for our partners. Nothing we do at Axios is possible without the support of our partners. The investments we make in journalism around the country, convening great conversations like this in amazing spaces. So huge thanks to Roblox for making today's conversation possible. And so I'm very excited to welcome to the stage for a view from the COP conversation from Roblox, their Vice President of Civility and Partnerships, Tommy Bomick, and from the Joan Gans Cooney Center, their Executive Director, Michael Preston. Hey, Michael, welcome to Axios House. Hello, have a seat. I think we should start maybe big picture with you, Tammy. Tell us a little bit why Roblox is here. Why is it important to be on the sidelines of such a big gathering at the UN, which we heard we were supposed to avoid. Don't go too close to it for security. Why is it important to be here, and what's the message that you're bringing?
The reason why we're here, it's so important for us to really land the message how much we prioritize safety. I'm going to call out the elephant in the room. Many of you may have seen negative press about Roblox in the last month or so. And it's very important because we're meeting now with safety organizations, researchers, academics. We're meeting with governments to really make it very clear what our safety framework is and how much we prioritize. We've launched over 100 new safety features over the course of the last year. A lot of the negative press has come from things that have happened 5 years ago. Roblox has always prioritized safety, and we continue to iterate over time. So our platform is very different today than it was even 6 months ago.
And I guess the level of importance a little bit bespeaks to, we're here 2 blocks from a gathering of literal world leaders, like the top of that pyramid, to talk about it, which is, I think, why it's important to you bring that message
Exactly.
here. Michael, why don't you say a little bit about your involvement in this, like your connection to the Sesame Workshop, and like how you view public-private partnership with organizations like Roblox on this issue.
Thanks so much. So as you said so well, I lead the Joan Getz Cootie Center. We're an R&D lab inside Sesame Workshop, so we're part of Sesame, but we face the field outside trying to help tech and media companies make better digital experiences for children, basically perpetuating the same ways of working inside of Sesame that we've had for 56 years now, making television for kids and their families. And so our orientation to this is wherever kids are going is a place that we need to be with our specific focus on children and families. So it's been digital games, it's been social spaces, it's been the whole gamut of everything.
Yeah, when you say where kids are going, as the father of kids, I know where my kids are going, and they're probably the event I think they're most excited Dad is at this week is this one, because they actually know what I'm talking about. Let's go into a little bit of those concerns, and maybe this is for you, Tammy. Like, as you're walking around here and you talk to partners, in industry and adjacent, like what are the concerns they're raising, and what are the priorities that are sort of lining up in your mind?
Yeah, we're talking to a lot of industry partners here this whole week, and one of the things that comes out very, very strongly is, and something that we really believe in, because Roblox is a platform that embraces user-generated content. It is a platform for youth, made by youth. So it's even more important for us to make sure that we're listening to youth. So, again, one of our main priorities, we have a youth advocacy team, a teen council, where we're always, they're 14 to 17 years old. There's 14 of them. They are so smart. They know how Roblox works, and they're not afraid to tell us what's wrong with the platform, how we can improve it, and what they want. So we're taking a lot of that input and integrating it directly into the platform to make it more relevant and authentic for them.
Continue that thread, though. Like, you're getting that kind of feedback. Are you able to share a little bit of like what that translates into? Like, what do you see on the platform then once you take that kind of input from youth?
Well, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
One of the things that we just announced was teen well-being features. So one of the things that they called out was they felt a lot of pressure when their friends saw them online on Roblox, and they felt compelled to have to play. So we introduced a product feature that we just announced that allows kids to turn off the online alerts, so that if they just want to chill and they just want to play by themselves without the pressure of friends, they can do that. They can also turn on Do Not Disturb so they can get the much needed sleep that they need. But that's just one example of some of the things they're doing. They also created social media assets to talk to other teens about how to address mental health.
So first, if I had my pen, I would write down how to use those functionality, because now I'm going to go home and teach my children how to use that. I'm learning, this is news I can use right here. Come back a little bit to listening to the users, listening to young people use it, and I'd love to hear a little bit of your sense on that, Michael, too. How important is that? Like, would you have figured that out had you not been listening to kids, or how much are they driving some of these decision-making now?
So it's pretty incredible. It seems so intuitive, doesn't it? It seems so intuitive, but it's amazing how many platforms don't do it. And so we announced our Teen Council in January. We had, and it was a beta. We've learned a lot in the last 6 months from them, how useful they are. We had 200 engineers and product people, and a lot of engineers, they think that they know best. And it was incredible to see these teens telling them what was wrong, and these engineers were down taking notes.
Right.
After the session, they came back to us, and the product people and engineers came back to us and said, how do we do that every other month? How do we get these product features in front of these kids and have them tell us? So it's really integral.
Michael, you're nodding. Is that like a feedback mechanism that you've experienced in your R&D?
Yeah, I was nodding in support of everything you were just saying, Tammy. But also, we also employ all of those ideas and those methods. In fact, one thing we've recently begun doing is more around co-design, which is partnering with companies at the very beginning stages of product ideation, because you have so much leverage to make changes that are meaningful for kids' experience. And so what we'll do is help them recruit a diverse audience of kids of the demographic they're targeting, and those kids will be the co-designers of the experience because they have unique insights about what they want and what they would like to feel when they're engaged in play. I think that's something that we don't maybe realize, is that audiences can also be partners, that they actually will help us make a better product, and it's easier at the beginning to make those changes before they go live.
I want to expand that question then a little bit, or that thread, is we talked a lot about like hearing from the users, hearing from the young people who are using it. Then how does that radiate out to the adults in the room, I guess, like educators or parents or other partners? Like, what's the next step you take on that?
So parents are freaked out right now. I mean, we talk to parents all the time, and they are feeling guilty. They feel like they don't know enough. They're pressured because they're trying to parent. And what we're finding is that a lot of the narrative out there is focused on guilting parents for what they're not doing. And so one of the things we just announced was we just hired an amazing global head of parental advocacy. And what this person's role is to listen to parents from all over the world, really understand the cultural nuances in terms of what parents are concerned about, and educate and empower. And that, I lead an area called the civility within Roblox, and it's really just bridging the education gap between young people and parents to empower them with the knowledge and tools to thrive online. And not just on Roblox, but online in general.
I would love to hear from both of you then, like as a parent. I'm sure there's many folks in the room who care about this as a policy issue, but also like as a parent issue. What is the advice you could give to them to be a force for good in this? How should they think about this? What kind of feedback should they be giving, either to corporate partners? How should, like, for me personally, how should I be approaching this with my kids?
Well, I would say first, the feedback we get overwhelmingly from parents is that they're exhausted and don't really want to deal with the parent controls that come with all of these applications, right? They're complicated, they don't quite understand. Frankly, they're a black box, something that's happening over there in my kid's world. I don't need to be there, don't want to be there. And so how we get across that line is part of this sort of collaboration where we really invite parents to help shape those experiences. And themes that emerge include they want them to be shared. They want to have the experience together with their kids. They don't want to be monitoring from afar and figuring out complicated dashboards. And they want them to build closeness in the family. They don't want it to be this sort of divisive thing where they're fighting over access and stuff. So they're looking for playful and shared experiences that make everybody feel empowered in it. So that, I think, would be like, if you're trying to like elevate the product you're making or your brand, that's a place, that's a white space for people to go into.
I would also say that safety by default is key. For the kids who are younger, parents shouldn't have to worry whether or not their kids are safe, especially the younger ones. Now, teens have their own worlds, and they should be allowed to be able to have some freedom. And we've introduced features that allow teenagers to connect with friends that they know in real life and trust, to be able to have natural conversations without all the filters that Roblox has on the platform. But for the younger kids that are under the age of 13, we have chat filters turned off by default. We have types of content for younger kids automatically set to mild or minimal type content, appropriate for the age group.
So have it start from there before the parent has to get involved.
And then if the parent wants to customize things, they can go in and do that.
Right.
But they know that their youngest kids are safe.
Let's spin this forward a little bit. Like, what are things on the horizon that are really interesting to you? What are technological tweaks or updates that are interesting that might move this debate along?
You have an update for us? What's new?
What's next? Like, what's in the skunk?
I do have an update. I do have an update. So we actually just recently announced that everyone on Roblox platform will have to have facial age estimation. So again, we really want to make sure our platform is as safe as possible. So by the end of this year, and we are all engineers, it's all hands on deck. All of our engineers are focused on making sure that we have facial age estimation integrated into the platform for everybody on the platform.
And that's a kind of a way, like I'm thinking about this just sort of as a parental use case, a way of taking it out of letting me think about what kind of the knobs I need to go in and turn. And so like the base case scenarios, like where those settings are and understanding those things.
Yes.
Make it easy for parents.
So once you sign up, you have to make sure that we know how old you are. And through facial age estimation, it's very accurate. It's accurate within 2 years. And so if you, for example, you have the blessing of looking really young, if you come out between 12 and 14, will always default to youngest, so 12. So you'll have fewer features available to you, but definitely much more constrained. You would have to provide government ID or like a birth certificate or parental verification.
All right, I've got cool things I can take home and tell my kids that I learned when I came up to the United Nations General Assembly. Before we run out of time, I want to end on one fun thing like we always do at Axios. We got to talk one fun Sesame thing. And so here's an opportunity. What's your favorite Sesame character, favorite Sesame memory? End us on a high note.
Okay, well, I promised that I wouldn't sing the song because that's always stuck in my head. I promised. I promised I wouldn't sing the song.
You don't have to
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Sing.
So Cookie Monster, I love Cookie Monster because he's so crazy. He's just like, and I just.
All right, this is leading us right to the snack bar.
Sometimes when I'm
this is
hungry, I just feel like I'm doing the same thing.
All right, Michael, you do this for a living. What's your favorite?
I mean, I was a Sesame kid, as probably most of us in the room were, but I remember seeing Stevie Wonder perform live on Sesame Street when I was a kid, and I loved it so much that I waited all day for it to play again, because back in the day you had to wait for it to show on TV. And I watched the whole thing again. I think just seeing how it was like happening in the neighborhood, all the kids were rocking out, I mean, it was kind of, I think that's when I began my journey.
All right, we're all going to whip out our phones and look for that clip online. Tammy, Michael, thanks so much for being here.
you.
Huge thanks to Roblox for making this conversation possible. That's a wrap for us here, though. Stick around. We've got lots of snacks and foods and drinks and cookies, probably, and the conversations will continue later this afternoon here. Thanks to you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. This is a packed room. I'm Eleanor Hawkins. I author Axios Communicators, which is a weekly newsletter about communication, but it's specifically about how business leaders, brands, employers communicate with their various audiences and the topics and trends that impact that. And one of those topics that we're going to touch on tonight is how being a responsible business has maybe changed and evolved over time, what it means to be sustainable, what it means to invest responsibly, especially amid this political landscape that we're in. Our first set of guests know a lot about this. Please join me in welcoming Patagonia CEO Ryan Gellert and Chief Impact and Communications Officer Corley Kinna. Hi. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. Ryan, I'm going to start with you because you are my favorite type of CEO. That is to say...
I thought you were going to say favorite CEO.
Favorite type. That is to say that you have a point of view, you are vocal, you're not afraid to write op-eds and post on social media and challenge your peers, maybe challenge the president. So talk to us a little bit about how you view your role as a business leader in this current environment.
Yeah, I think it's more than just being a business leader. I think anybody that sort of gets the opportunity to bask in these warm lights and be asked questions in environments like this and considers himself a leader of any kind, I think has a responsibility to speak up at moments like this. And I think what we wrestle with quite a bit in this environment is how do we stay really focused on the issues where we feel we can be additive and have kind of an authentic point of view? And so overwhelmingly, that's on the role of business, and that's on environmental topics. And if you care about protecting the natural world, this is one hell of a target-rich environment right now.
Well, and you've got to have some sort of like cost-benefit analysis of how you engage, when you engage, maybe who you engage with. What do you hear from your peers who maybe aren't as vocal as you?
I think there's a lot of fear right now. I
Fear.
think there's a lot of fear in the outdoor industry. I think there's a lot of fear across the business sector. You know, it's interesting, the UN put some numbers out, I think coming out this week, if not out already. 97% of CEOs still believe the work they're doing is important and they'll continue at that pace or faster. 88% believe that there's a stronger business case for sustainability now than there was 5 years ago. Only 50% are comfortable talking about anything they're doing right now. That's a huge problem.
Well, and that's a challenge for you, right, as somebody who leads impact and communication. How do you all navigate that? How do you make these decisions?
Yes and no. So, and I've thought a lot about this because we get a lot of questions from other companies. How do we make these decisions about when we should speak up? And it really comes down to two things. Are we additive and are we credible? If the answer is yes on both, then we should be speaking up. And there's a lot of different forms that can take. Mostly when we speak up, speak out, it's about how we engage our community. And I think we've been doing it now for so long that there's truly an expectation from our colleagues and our customers and larger communities around them that we take action on the issues that matter most.
Just drilling down on the communication piece, ESG. What do you make of that term? Should we still use it? Is it helpful?
Should we have ever used it?
We've never used it. And I actually think it's part of the kind of special sauce is we haven't relied on the acronyms, on sort of corporate trends and fads. We do business in a way that treats our community like friends and equals. Our founder has always wanted to do business differently on his own terms. And we are looking out for our planet and for our communities. And so, yeah, it's not about ESG or anything else. It's about doing the right thing as a company.
One of the things that you all also rely on is this belief that consumers will buy into environment first messaging, right? There's the famous Don't Buy This Jacket campaign. A few years back, you donated 100% of Black Friday proceeds back to environmental causes. So which audiences are most interested? And then how do you think about expanding beyond just that core outdoors audience? Like, how do you grow and expand?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start by saying I think Don't Buy This Jacket ad's probably one of the most often quoted and referenced and misunderstood ads, misunderstood things we've ever done. Don't Buy This Jacket was the headline. There was a picture of a particular jacket. It was our best-selling jacket at that time in 2000, I believe, 11. And then there was a whole block of copy at the bottom, which really spoke about the fact that we did everything we knew how to do to minimize the footprint of that jacket, and yet the footprint was this and this and this. And so what we're trying to encourage people to do was don't buy things you don't need, and if you do need things, buy quality. And I think that is a pretty universal message. And so I think often people think, well, you know, are you an outdoor brand? Are you an activist brand? We're a company that makes products, technical products, most of them, for people who love surfing, fly fishing, alpine climbing, mountaineering, snow sports, and otherwise. And we understand that, you know, if you're a snowboarder on Saturday, you're a snowboarder on Wednesday, if you're traveling at work and otherwise, and that's our point of view. We've got a set of values that are much more broad than that, but we don't really target customers per se. We just make things for sport communities.
And in order for those sport communities to continue, they need access to lands, maybe national parks. A huge initiative of yours has been protecting and preserving public land, pushing back against this administration. In 2017, you filed a lawsuit, and you actually saw an uptick in sales after that.
I certainly wouldn't make a causation statement on that one.
Okay. You didn't see a boycott.
Let me give the room a piece of advice. Suing the president is not a great strategy for driving sales. Let's just.
So you don't anticipate any other lawsuits? I know you all have a challenge that's taking place right now around the roadless rule.
Yeah. I mean, I would say this: our mission statement is we're in business to save our home planet. As Corley said a bit ago, we do that in service of our communities, including our customers and our employees. We've done it for the better part of our 52-year history. We think to be additive, we think to meet the challenge of this time, we've got to use our money, we've got to use our voice, our convening power, and any other resources that we have available as a business. And so, will we sue? Will we get involved in litigation to further those aims if needed? But there's nothing current.
And yeah, I would just add, we got involved in that lawsuit because we helped establish a national monument called Bears Ears National Monument. And so we supported the grassroots groups who helped to establish it, and that led to it. Most recently, you just mentioned the roadless rule. Well, our community, I think, has an expectation that the roadless rule, which hasn't actually been all that controversial and has worked pretty darn well, that we would stand up for it. So we asked our community to submit a comment. We tried to make it as easy as possible for them. I think 22,000 people in our community submitted a comment. So people want this. They expect it. And it can work.
I think there were 190,000 total comments. And so I think, the work that we did via ActionWorks and social media was about, 15% of that?
And we know that these protecting nature, these environmental issues are favored across the aisle. They're kind of winning issues for both Republicans and Democrats. So why don't you see more companies joining forces and pushing back?
I think we do. I think there's maybe not as many big companies that everybody's reading about in the paper, but there are. We started when it was clear that public lands in America were going to be under threat. We partnered with Conservation Alliance to stand up something called Brands for Public Lands. You may know the current count of brands that are in it. It's 125?
More than 100, 98 of which joined a sign-on letter to say, keep this roadless rule. So they're acting.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think across the outdoor industry, across hunting, fishing, I think this is an issue that across the country people have very strong feelings about and are overwhelmingly in support of protecting our public lands. I think it's one of the very few issues right now that doesn't feel all that politically charged or polarized. Politically charged, probably polarized less so. And I think that we're spending a lot of time with the hunt and fish community trying to build alliances and figure out how we can kind of hold the line on this. I do think, there's a lot of press about the reconciliation bill, the threats to public lands, a little bit of press around the fact that that was averted. It's evil never sleeps. This is all day, all the time. So I feel like our public lands, access to them and the resources on them are under constant threat.
One thing that we've found in our Axios reporting, we do a reputation ranking every year with the Harris poll. Patagonia always ranks pretty high on the list, if not in the top slot. And you also seem to be really favored among Republicans and Democrats. So what is the secret? What is the secret to appealing to everyone?
I think it's about that authenticity. It's about using our voice when, again, we're really adding to it and we're helping to solve problems. I think our community also understands our business literally depends on a healthy planet and these places being protected. That gives us a bit of permission to engage in it. And I think the tone matters a lot. We try to be really intentional with our words. We're not trying to add more logs to a fire, but we are trying to make progress and to be really clear in that, and I think it helps.
You're oftentimes first movers. Do you hear when I'm talking to CCOs, they always say, yeah, I look to my peers, or I wait to see what this CEO is going to say or what this company does. You kind of seem to be that company that people look to. What is that pressure like? What have you learned from being a first mover?
There's a lot of pressure internally on a lot of different issues. And I think I've been at Patagonia for 9 years now, and that expectation has changed a lot. We know we have to work hard to earn the trust of our colleagues and customers every single day. We don't take that for granted. And we also know there's a lot of different ways that we can speak out. And so some issues make sense for us to engage our community on, and sometimes it's about internally reassuring our colleagues, we understand this is real, this is happening. and here's what we're doing about it. It doesn't mean that we need an entire brand campaign around it also. And so, but that pressure changes a lot, and it is especially internally lately.
From small side.
Yeah, I would just add to that. I think reputation and trust, there are things that are built, take forever to build and seconds to blow up. And so I think we take it really seriously. And I think particularly on the internal side, it's just constant communication and not a lot of sound bites, but unpack the nuance of, complicated conversations.
You talk about reputation. A book just came out about the founding of Patagonia. I know you all didn't pitch the book, but you also didn't stiff arm the author and say, we will not participate. Talk to me about that decision to engage around this book, Dirtbag Billionaire.
I'll go quick. So David Gellis of the New York Times approached me. He had the exclusive when our founders said they were going to give away the financial value of the company, so he knew us well. He had written, his most recent book was about capitalism, and he was looking for a different take on that, and so he asked me about it. And I took it to Ryan and the senior team, and there's two things we can do here. We can ignore it and act like it doesn't exist, and he'll write a book that's not informed by what we're doing, or we can participate and help make sure he has the access he needs to do the research he needs to get this right. I think he got it right, and yeah, it was fun to explore that history with him.
Yeah, I would just add, it's, we sit around and breathe our own exhaust quite a bit, and so it's nice sort of getting an outside-in perspective on the history. There were a number of things I sort of thought about differently hearing it from the outside.
It's a great book. I'm not here to sell books, but you all should
I get
read
no
it.
commission on the book.
One of the things that he writes in the book that I want to end on, he writes that within the first 50 years, Patagonia became one of the most progressive companies in the world, setting the agenda for the rest of corporate America with its commitments to childcare, embrace of work-life balance, its focus on sustainability, and its political activism. What agenda-setting plans do you have for the next 50 years?
I think for us, we talk about this a lot, and we specifically spent a lot of time on this topic as we were contemplating the restructure. The family, I think it's been written about a bunch, didn't say this is the structure we want to put in place. They said this is the problem we want to solve. And the twin problems were they wanted Patagonia to continue to exist in the world and be governed by the values that they had imbued it with, and they wanted to cash flow the environment in much bigger ways right now. And so that was a problem to solve. That was the structure that we put in place was the solution. I think at that 50-year mark, which was about where we were at, what we really thought deeply about was the amount of money we've given away or could give away, the eco-innovation we've done in open source. Those are small things compared to just trying to operate a more responsible, however imperfect business. And that, I think, is going to ground the answer to that question as we look at the next 50.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
We'll welcome Axios publisher Nicholas Johnson to the stage. Thank you.
Everyone, wow, love to be here for the Eleanor Hawkins show. I love the standing room only. Good evening, I'm Nicholas Johnson. I'm the publisher of Axios. Thanks you so much for joining us here at Axios House. We're day 2 of our programming here on the sidelines of Climate Week in the United Nations General Assembly. We're very grateful for all of you to take time out of the busy week and join us. Also hugely thankful to our partners. Nothing we do at Axios is possible without the support of our partners. The investments we make in journalism around the country, hosting great events like this. So huge thanks to Weber Shandwick for being our partner this evening. And I'm very excited to welcome to the stage my old friend from Weber Shandwick, their CEO for North America and Global President, Jim O'Leary. Jim, where are you? Welcome back to Axios House. Take your time.
There he is.
It comes out of your time. Good to see you.
I'm so glad they fixed the pillows.
You can put that in your lap if you want to keep the branding.
Yeah. Very good.
Great to see you. Always fun to talk, especially excited this time. You come bearing gifts.
I do?
I hope so. It says it on the card. Let's see.
Okay, that's
Let's
good.
see what you got.
We'll give some I brought.
Weber Shandwick just did a CEO survey, 250 C-suite executives.
Yes, okay, we do come
I
in,
want to
yes.
hear what they're saying. I'm going to ask like I do every time, like,
Yeah.
is ESG dead? What are they talking about?
You know, normally you give me at least like one or two less provocative questions before you spring that on me.
I just want to keep you engaging.
But I'm glad that you just went for it this time around, Nick. Yeah, so is ESG dead? I mean, I think I think effectively the term ESG is dead, or certainly dormant right now, right? But I do not think that ESG, from a substance perspective, is dead at all. And our research reflects this too, which we'll talk about momentarily. Yeah. I think from a substance perspective, ESG is alive and well. And I think you could even argue that there has been a shift away from what was a bit of a performative version of ESG over the past several years to a much more performance-aligned or business-aligned version of kind of the substance of ESG. And so I would argue that's a good thing.
How does that show up in the data?
Yeah, so we did this research, you referenced it, 250 C-suite executives, we talked to them all. Half were in the US, half were outside of the US.
Right.
And we asked them a bunch of questions. And I think the piece of data that is probably most relevant to the overall headline here is that half of the people that we spoke to, they are in the midst of reevaluating the substance of their ESG programs, and they're all working to align them much more directly with their business strategy, much like you just heard our friends from Gap talking about, right? And again, I think that's a good thing. I think it's a shift away from kind of like the virtue signaling version.
Again, from the performative to actual performance base.
Yeah, I think so.
How do they talk about it then? Like, how do you align that change into the way the language? I guess
How do you talk about it in the current environment? That's a little bit challenging at times.
That's why people call you.
That's right. So I mean, okay, look, I guess we were in this exact room now that I think about it a year ago, almost on this same date. We just, I guess you get to hang out with me every once.
It's always great to see you.
In that moment, what did we say? We said that there was a bunch of research that had been done related to the how people talk about it. And at that point, it was like a dramatic decrease in the use of the term ESG investing, and then a massive decrease in CEOs using the term ESG on like earnings calls, annual reports, and all the rest. I think that has continued. I think also there's a big shift away from the term DEI, oftentimes towards inclusion and belonging. But I think, again, the substance beneath them both is still quite strong.
Yeah.
Our research, we found a couple things. So that was last year, that those trends are continuing. What we found that was new, probably two things related to where there's more use of certain language and then one less. So we're seeing more use of language that leans into like, and you would expect this given the defining nature of AI and the zeitgeist right now. But there's a lot more like leaning into like technology and innovation, even in the context of sustainability. Right, in the context of ESG, and then a lot more, and you would not be remotely surprised to hear this given what's going on politically, but a lot more leaning into like workforce, job creation, American manufacturing.
Like an economic message, a little.
Economic message,
more.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then where we are seeing a significant decrease is in identity-oriented language. People are trying to stay out of getting caught up in identity politics.
To put this onto the trend, like, is this a since we talked a year ago to that point, is this a continuation of that same line? Are there zigs? Are there zags? Did the research pull anything out on that? Like how people maybe
so
shifting?
I think it's a continued deceleration of the use of this type of language. Not so much like the language that's more specific to the things that oftentimes are much more close to the business, and so like decarbonization or climate or that type of stuff. But related to just the more generic use of the terms, absolutely.
How do we turn this into practical advice, like for communicators in the room, like based on those trends, based on that research? What's your tips for them?
Well, you heard it from our friends over at The Gap, and I think that this certainly came out in the research, which is like the most important thing is just being authentic, right? And so if you're Patagonia or if you're Gap, I guess Gap's next. Patagonia was before. If you're Patagonia and one of your things is a wildlife and it's quite authentic to you, then then obviously you should be leaning into that. But and if you're McDonald's and it's regenerative agriculture, if you're General Motors in the current environment, might even be like American manufacturing. And I think that's that's what in some ways it's a little bit of like a back to the basics, which is what a lot of times before the pendulum swang so far one direction, where things were, which is a substantive version of ESG in support of the business versus a more performative version of ESG that might have been in support of like weighing in on every issue that came across someone's desk or making commitments,
making it more
pledges.
aligned with those core things that you always believed in instead of maybe looking for new things
that's
to
right.
talk about. There's something you talk about a lot that we've shared before that I want you to share for this broader audience, something like 5X. Like unpack what you mean by that when we've talked about it, because I thought it was an interesting topic.
Yeah, right. We talked about that, I guess it was in Cannes, and then I wrote something up for Axios, everyone's favorite publication, of course. So 5X, I think if this is a room full of people who are in broadly the communications marketing and the sustainability profession, I'll talk about it in the context of our industry, right? And so I think there's 5 column seismic shifts that are reshaping the future of our profession. That's what 5X is. We of course just had to give it a fancy acronym because they're in such high demand acronyms these days, aside from ESG and DEI. So we did a bunch of research, and we determined that in the next 5 years, within the kind of communications and marketing profession, there's arguably going to be more change in the next 5 years than there has been in the past 5 decades, right? And the change is being driven by 5 trends that each have a corresponding economy. And when I say economy, I don't mean like a geographic, like the U.S. economy. I mean more like the circular economy, a trend-based economy, right? And so the 5 economies are, and I'll break this down a little bit, but the first is the attention economy. The second is the experience economy. The third is the creator economy. The fourth is the stakeholder economy. And the fifth is the intelligence economy, right? And so the attention economy, this is what our profession has been, we've been in the business of for the past 50 years, right? Which is earning attention. And, I guess it was Ezra Klein just recently, he was like, you can't buy attention, you got to earn attention, right? He's putting a nice little endorsement on what we've been doing for a very long time. This is, of course, the foundation upon which our profession has been built. And then, 20 years ago, there was an economy that kind of grew out of that, which is the experience economy. It's digital. Well, there's now 3 emerging economies that are going to entirely redefine the profession, right? And so first is the creator economy, which already is redefining the profession. And when you're in, Cannes at the International Festival of Creativity or elsewhere, you can't help but see this already happening in a significant way, right? This is influencer, this is social, and this is where that's all coming together. Where creators are now more credible and trusted than brands, and they define culture, right? And then second is the stakeholder economy, and so this is the idea that CEOs, C-suites, boards are under greater pressure than ever before, particularly at the intersection of business and culture, and politics and social issues, right? And there's all of this increased tension, and there's higher stakes. So that's another economy that's going to be continue to redefine the profession in the next 5 years. And then last but not least, of course, which is the AI revolution, right? This is the intelligence economy. And the intelligence economy is what ultimately is the force multiplier for all of the others, right? It's like supercharging the change. And I do think that, you will see more change in the next, and I say it without hyperbole, but you'll see more change in our profession in the next 5 years than we did in the previous 50.
Well, we'll bring you back in a year and we'll get an update on that.
Yeah,
But I'm
let's
glad
do
you
it.
mentioned AI because I want to end on one AI thing like I love to on stage. You have a cool AI tool that you use. Please share it.
Okay, well, it's a bit more of a system than a tool. So, as I was telling Nick, we use AI we build AI into the work we do for our clients every day. We've been doing this for years, right? We've been doing AI workshops for, C-suites, and we build agentic crisis systems for some of our clients, and we do scenario planning and all agentic monitoring, all the kind of things that you would expect. And I found in my conversations with CEOs that they were actually much more interested in talking to me about like my personal AI use than like the enterprise AI solutions.
That's what I'm interested in.
Right, so you're interested in. And so, and I was talking to, and a lot of them were telling me what their personal AI use was. And so then it dawned on me that if I really wanted to be advising CEOs on their personal AI use, I needed to do my own kind of AI transformation. And so this is essentially what I did. And Nick makes fun of me, or will make fun of me for this.
Keeping a straight face, I love that.
But I worked with the team to catalog every single thing that I do from the moment I get up to the moment I go to bed, down to the atomic unit, right? And so then this whole, as you can imagine, this is like a massive, comprehensive, data set. And then we organized it, we cataloged it, and we were like, what on this list can be automated, orchestrated, replaced with tech off the shelf, or replaced with custom tech or agents, right? And so then we spent the next 6 months building the system that would allow a good amount of that activity to be replaced by all the things that I just told you about. And so I have an entire suite of off-the-shelf tech that I use that I layer, right? Like, as you guys probably have experienced yourself, like when you use these things as a series of one-offs, they're borderline, I'm not going to say useless, but you don't get as much out of them. But when you layer them together, so like, let me give you an example of what that means. I have like my own equivalent of like my own personal miniature LLM, right? It's a workspace.
A robot gym.
It's a workspace. But the way that it is fed is via a series of things. My email is connected into it. Every single conversation I have all day, every day, for the most part, except for the private ones, the notes from those conversations automatically feed directly into the LLM, right? The LLM is queryable, so you can ask it to do something for you or tell you based on everything that's being fed into it. It also is predictive, based on the more and more you feed into it, the more it's predictive. And then what I also have on top of it is a set of custom tech and agents to do tasks, right? And so like, again, back to that big list of things that I do all day, every day. Well, it was like, okay, so I have an agent that helps me write faster. I have an agent that provides me with real-time competitive intelligence up to date all the time. And then I have agents for pretty much everything that you can think of within reason that can be automated. But more importantly, they all like sync to each other, and they're all part of one like almost like brain central repository. And
does it work?
Yeah, it works great.
All right.
And now I'm having my team, essentially everybody on my team is now going through the same process, and then we're going to push it down throughout the entire organization so that the whole company essentially has this.
Well, Jim, great to see you. We'll invite you back next year. See if you come, maybe your robot.
Right, I'll send
instead, and you can
I'll
vibe
code
you can't come on stage yet.
Of myself.
Hopefully, all right. This human space is still safe.
Yeah.
Jim, thanks for being here. Huge thanks to Weber Shandwick. The Eleanor Hawkins Show will continue.
Yeah, very good.
Again, everybody. Who here has seen the iconic Gap commercial with Cat's Eye? Show of hands. Who knows the dance? Just me? Okay. We'll work on that. We'll ask our next guest about it because we are going to be joined by Gap Inc.'s Chief Communications Officer and Chair and President of Gap Foundation, Mame Aman Brown. I love it. Thank you for being here. So on brand, I love it.
Here, well, how's that for an intro?
It's great. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you again for being here. You are fairly new to Gap Inc. You joined about 3 months ago from Contour Brands. Talk to us about what attracted you to this role, why you wanted to join this company.
Yeah, so, well, first of all, Eleanor, thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor, and what an extraordinary group you have here this evening. So why Gap and sort of why now? I mean, I've always been attracted to companies that have really a connection with legacy and culture. And over the past 25 years in corporate communications, I've had the privilege of working across a number of different sectors. Financial services, started at JP Morgan for 10 years in the investment bank, moved to Washington and spent a good part of my career at the World Bank, really ending poverty by 2030. I mean, how relevant could that be? And then I was really interested in getting into the retail and apparel sector, and most of my roles have been sort of a phone call came in. And so I got the call to join Contour, the parent company of Wrangler and Lee Denim, and moved into that sector. And then Gap. And so why Gap? I mean, I think that the reason I joined Gap really comes from its origin story. And if you're not familiar with the Gap origin story, 1969, a small shop on Ocean Avenue named Generation Gap. The Fishers founded it. And after a while, they scratched out the name Generation and it became Gap. And it was really about inviting people to buy product that was for everyone, for every size, for every shape, and really a message of inclusion. And so our mission is to bridge the gaps for a better world. And so I signed up right away. I'm like, that's really my calling and sort of why I'm in this industry. Yeah.
I want to stay focused on that bridging the gap piece and maybe talk a little bit about a LinkedIn post that got a lot of attention last week. Your CEO posted about the need for open dialogue and having courageous conversations following the killing of Charlie Kirk. And this is at a time when a lot of employers were firing employees for commenting or maybe pulling them off air for jokes that they made or commentary that they made, but you all took a different approach. Talk to me about that decision to comment and to encourage dialogue and courageous conversation.
Yeah, so I mean, it's such an important moment. Obviously, a lot of politically divisive language out there, but I think it really comes down to, if you're walking in our building at Gap Inc., it's really about our purpose, right? We talk a lot about our purpose. And if you think about what a gap is, right? A gap is the space between people, ideas, dialogue, right? And so when the moment happened, we decided sort of to, celebrate the idea that dialogue is important, right? And double down on that idea. It spoke to us, right, as a company. But again, it speaks to us around this sort of bridging gaps, right? How do you invite dialogue? How do you create a space where people feel safe to have conversations? And really, it was really about that.
How was it received amongst employees? And did you hear from some of your peers? How was it received overall?
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at the headlines, it was sort of, Gap Inc. and sort of becoming a uniter, right? We want to unite in conversations. It's as simple as that. So, sort of leaning into that, it supports, again, like our purpose narrative and what we believe as a company.
Another conversation you all are uniting around is around sustainability. Talk to us about some of the courageous conversations you're having here this week, some of the initiatives that you have going on.
Yeah, so we're really excited, Gap across a wide, so we think about sustainability both from an infrastructure perspective and a people perspective, right? And so, our bridge in sustainability and what's really relevant to Climate Week is that we're bridging the climate gap, right? And so what does that mean at Gap? It means we're thinking about water, right? Because it's a very lofty goal to say you're going to bridge a climate gap, but why water? So water is essential in the apparel industry, right? We, in our supply chain, 28 billion liters of water we use in our supply chain. That's almost the equivalent of 11,000 Olympic swimming pools. We think about water in the sense of that women, and everyone in this room knows this, traditionally bear the burden of the ability to get access to clean water and sanitation. So we've really leaned into that, and it's an internal strategy, and it's also external. So internally, vis-a-vis our supply chain, it's around recycling, it's around reuse, it's around fresh water. But then externally, what's relevant to this week is that we think about partners, right? So we are partnering with some phenomenal organizations through our initiatives. We have a Women in Water collaborative, which focuses on, creating space for women to have lessen the burden on them in the water crisis. Partners like Cargill and Coca-Cola and others. We're partnering with water.org around some initiatives, both focused on investing in, microloans in countries, obviously the developing world, and also in the first world and in the global south and global north. So it's a pervasive partners, but then people and infrastructure. And we're really celebrating this week because we think that, Richard Dixon, our CEO, we were at an Ecolab dinner last night, and that's one of our partners, and he said, who can take offense to water, right, as a human right, right? And that's why it's such an important platform to invite other partners in, because we're only as strong as we are as a collaborative.
It's keeping on that theme of being a uniting force. We all united around the Cat's Eye ad. We have to talk about it. I have to talk about it. I can't. I'm not over it. What kind of behind-the-scenes intel can you tell us? How successful was the ad? How many people did you reach? Did it drive sales? What can you share?
Yeah. So, the Cat's Eye phenomenon, it's like world domination, right? In the sense of it's a testament to our commitment to sort of storytelling and telling stories. And the denim category at Gap Inc. is part of our DNA, right? And so to partner with a group like Cat's Eye, which represents so much around inclusion and diversity, right? We all saw ourselves in that campaign. And, in looking at the campaign, obviously we had an incredible song, right? Khalees and Milkshake, but we wanted to invite people into the conversation, right? And that's what, cultural renaissance is with a brand, right? You invite people, you invite your consumers in to experience it with you. So that's why you see the sort of viral nature of it, right? You have sororities who are on TikTok filming. And so the stats are staggering. We really are in striking distance of the most successful campaign in Gap's history. So I'll give you the stats. We were the #1 search on TikTok for days after the campaign launched. 600 million views. At one point, after the 3 or 4 days into the campaign, we were hitting about 8 billion impressions. And the stat I absolutely love is that the unmute button was the highest searched the category on our website because everybody wanted to listen to the song. And so when you say, did it drive revenue? How we think about our brand storytelling, our campaigns, is it's all about relevance and revenue, right? And so when you become relevant as part of a cultural conversation, you then you can drive revenue, right? And it's hard to do, but our team was brilliant, and they made it look really easy.
Well, and this was also alongside another conversation that was happening with another denim brand and another ad that went viral. Yeah. So what did you make of that juxtaposition? Did you lean in a bit? How did you all handle that?
Yeah, so we think about our campaign planning sort of like eyes straight forward, right? It takes months, right, to create a apparel campaign, as you know. So we certainly aren't predicting where and when we are with our peer set. But timing is everything. And I think we thought about our campaign in an isolated moment. And, our team is brilliant. And we saw Cat's Eye sort of gaining the momentum over months as it was in the cultural conversation. And, the stars aligned. And we sort of were able to ride that momentum.
Moving on beyond just Gap, there are several brands under the Gap Inc. umbrella. And you all are kind of expanding in the accessories and beauty line, and you're launching that first with Old Navy, right?
Yes.
Talk to us about that decision. Are you hoping to reach different audiences? What is the strategy here? Why do we need more beauty, more accessories?
Yes. So for those in the audience who are not familiar with our company, we are the largest specialty apparel company in the U.S. #1. We have 80,000 employees around the world, 2,500 stores. So our scale is enormous and impactful. So we have Old Navy, Banana Republic, Athleta, and Gap. And Old Navy is focused on sort of for those of you who shop at Old Navy, fun and family values, right? And so and then we have Athleta, right? Sort of the performance wear, and then we have Banana Republic, which is celebrating, the world explorer and sort of that narrative. But the beauty and accessories expansion, after 2 years of a very successful play with our playbook in our strategic priorities, we're ready to sort of expand into what we call adjacent categories to apparel. And the neat and sort of important story about the beauty and accessories expansion is that our consumers are telling us, and we're telling us that this was a category that they wanted to see. And so it was insight-led. So very important to say that our beauty and accessories expansion was insight-led, and 70% of our Old Navy consumers, when engaged, said that they were interested to see more of us in the beauty space. So we are going to move, productively into the fall, 150 doors, where we will have sort of a shop-in-shop concept and also some beauty associates. And we will then move it along in 2026 with Gap. So in 2026, Gap will align there. And then we eventually will take that playbook to accessories and align that same model moving into 2026. But titans of the industry, if you all saw the announcement, 4 titans of the industry coming in, crowding in. We're incredibly excited about the momentum that we hope we're going to build with this new categories. Yeah.
Keep an eye out for that. We have to leave it there. Thank
Yes.
you so much.
So great to meet you and
Thank
see
you.
Yeah.
All right. Our final guest of the evening is a true trailblazer in the world of responsible investing. We'll get into why she even has a nickname. She is very well known for this. But please join me in welcoming to the stage Carlyle Global Head of Corporate Affairs, Meg Starr. Hi. Thank you for being here. So I teased it a little bit, but I like that we're ending with you because we heard all of the great work that Ryan and Corley and Mame are doing, and you've figured out a way to kind of put financial data behind it. Talk to us about that. Well, first of all, and you earned a nickname for it.
Uh-oh.
What do they call you? The Green Star?
The Green Star.
Okay. Talk to us about
actually
this.
my mom's literal last name, so it's like in the family.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So it fits. But talk to us about this because few investors are interested in putting money towards good without knowing that it will also drive profit. So
Yeah.
talk to us about how you came up with this database.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Nice to see everybody. So what Eleanor was talking about is this project that was kind of a pipe dream, I would say, 5 years ago in the depths of COVID. I work at Carlyle, a large global investment firm, and I was running sustainability, and we were just dying under the weight of requests for sustainability questions and data that just like were this cacophony and didn't tell us anything because they all had slightly different wording and slightly different calculations across thousands of metrics. And so we got in a room and we just did some hard negotiating with some of the big capital allocators in the US, CalPERS, CalSTRS, internationally, APG, PGGM. And we said, it's not that crazy of an idea, but what if we all got in a room and we just decided on what data we would measure from an ESG perspective, and then how we would tie that with operational and financial data so we could actually get something that works. And so the simple idea kicked off in 2021. We had a small group of private equity GPs that say we get it across our companies. That first year we got data from 2,000 private companies. We had around 100 private equity GPs participate, and we just closed the books on 2024 data. We have 9,000 private companies reporting quantitative, comparable ESG data tied with performance data across about 320 private equity firms, which just like gives us actual data about what is working, how does it work, and in what instances.
Okay, so what does the data say? Is ESG actually good for business?
I would just say that it really is nuanced, like everything in life. And like using the word ESG, it's like, why are we even talking about that at this point? We found 3 main things. The first is that the performance is really mixed between privately held companies and publicly held companies. Privately held companies do a better job on things like decarbonization and, frankly, job growth. They drive a lot more job growth. Publicly held companies are better on diversity. They're better on renewable energy purchasing. The second thing we found, which is really interesting, is that the private equity ownership model actually drives faster change. If you look at the data set between 2023 and 2024 on decarbonization, take Scope 1 emissions, public companies over that 1-year period reduce Scope 1 emissions about 0.4%. Private equity companies reduce them about 2.3%, 5x increase. Actually, same thing for Scope 2 emissions. Publicly held companies reduce them around 1%, privately held companies around 5.4%. And so there's something about that ownership model where if you get into it, you can drive change. And then the most important part, the last point, is that we're actually seeing ESG performance levers really being tied to financial performance. And that's kind of the holy grail that we've all been waiting for.
What do you attribute that to? Like, what are you measuring exactly?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple examples. Like, the reason I say why are we even talking about ESG? It's just like it's become so unhelpful. Like what we're actually talking about, that's an umbrella term of very specific underlying levers, some of which drive financial performance, some of which don't. So like, let's talk about each one individually. A metric that was added in recent years was around employee engagement and satisfaction. How bought in are your companies? How do they feel? Are your employees? How do they feel taken care of? Unsurprisingly, companies with really high employee satisfaction scores have about half the costs of turnover of other businesses.
Right.
You're not paying to recruit and train and onboard new companies. Companies with higher employee engagement scores also have about 7% higher revenue growth than companies with. So it's very specific metrics like that, and you can go through decarbonization. There's a lot of interesting data around workforce injuries, a lot of data around diversity, but each one has specific levers to EBITDA that may or may not exist. And like that's our job as sustainability professionals, is not to say this is all sunshine and rainbows and will make your company better, like really specifically where and how, so you can prioritize those investment dollars.
Can we drill down on the diversity findings?
Yeah.
What have you seen there? What have you noticed? Any trends?
Yeah, so what we've seen is that for diversity, particularly companies with more diverse boards, it's hard to measure diversity globally because there's a lot of regulations around what you can and can't ask, how you define things. So gender diversity tends to be the best data that we have, but pretty clear data that companies with more gender diverse boards and C-suites have faster revenue growth, and there are some correlations there around ideation, business development, creativity.
So let's talk a little bit about ESG and like how, because while you oversee corporate affairs, comms falls under that umbrella, yes. Right? So how do you all talk about ESG, sustainability, governance, diversity? What words do you use? What words should people use? What lands when you're talking to CEOs or investors?
We joke about this sometimes where there's so much disagreement and arguing around vocabulary right now that is like so fundamentally useless. When you get down to like, what are we actually talking about? Like 95% of the time you agree. If you asked, two investors, one from a red state, one from a blue state, like, do you want your investment manager in your portfolio of coastal real estate to be thinking about hardening assets, making sure that you have great insurance policies, making sure they're really understanding floodplain risk? Like 95%, if not more, of investors would say like, yes, I hope my manager thinks about that. If you ask those same people, do you want your investment manager thinking about climate change? A lot now would say no. And so like, we don't need to use unhelpful terminology if that's just gonna create confusion. And so I think really getting down into the specifics, our team kind of tongue-in-cheek named our sustainability report 2 years ago when this was really coming to a furor. We kind of jokingly named our sustainability report the EBITDA of ESG, and it stuck for us. It's like we literally, if you talk about some element of environmental, social, governance issues, you have to talk about the EBITDA lever. Is that driving revenue? Is that cutting costs? Is that helping with financing?
But what you're talking about are actually like nuanced conversation or in really detailed, I would say, conversation.
Yeah. It's not great for Axios headlines.
It's not great, but it's also not great for social media. It's not great for TikTok. It's not great for tweets. It's not great for maybe some political activists who want to attack companies. So what sort of conversations should these companies have if they are under attack for these ESG strategies that are good for their business.
Yeah. And you and I have talked about this a little bit. There's a lot of discourse, particularly in the U.S., particularly in the media, around kind of the anti-ESG movement. What we've actually seen across, as an investment manager, our core stakeholders, our investors, the vast majority of our investors want more, better, faster on sustainability, but there's a higher risk of talking about it externally. And so I think a lot of folks are just walking that line right now where, do we need to be talking about it externally if it's creating confusion, if you only get a soundbite out, if there's only a headline? Like, the harder, more useful conversations can take an hour and a half in a room talking about the climate resilience of your physical infrastructure portfolio. And so I think it's walking the line of like, who are your core demographics and how do you reach them? Like, it's probably not in a newspaper headline, sadly.
It's not X.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I do want to talk about something that is pretty social media friendly, which is a new partnership that you all have with F1.
Yes.
Seeing Carlisle show up there is interesting, to say the least. So talk to us about that decision. Like, why are you showing up there? Who are you trying to reach? What is the goal?
Yeah. So Carlisle signed a partnership with Oracle Red Bull Racing 2 weeks ago, and then we won the last 2 weekends in a row. So I think a real lucky charm. Might be Max Verstappen, might be us. I think this really gets to the trend of the democratization of private markets and opening the access. And everyone in this room has heard about that and is thinking about that. But private markets historically have really been only privy for large institutional investors that have the benefit of massive staffs and the ability to diligence and underwrite and invest in these assets. And we're really seeing that access start to open up to more everyday investors. There are a lot of caveats with how you do that well, how you do that carefully, how you pay a tremendous amount of attention to liquidity and risk. But as we see this opportunity set opening up, it's interesting from the perspective of a firm that historically our way of talking to investors was in a room having the hour and a half detailed conversation, and now you have to reach a much bigger audience. And so F1 is a massive sport democratizing access to that, and the characteristics of speed, precision, performance, we just really gelled with that team. And so together, we're really focused on this idea of how are we expanding access to our respective industries, and it's been a really fun partnership so far.
So what's next? Like, what else should we expect from Carlisle when it comes to reaching the everyday investor?
I think what's next is this idea that kind of permeates what we're talking about with sustainability, with this whole idea of democratization and opening access. It's really important to be careful and to be precise and to do it the right way, not necessarily the fast way. And so I think we've been focused on that as we continue to grow.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for being here. We really appreciate it. We have more programming happening tomorrow, so come back. But in the meantime, stick around, grab a drink, mix and mingle, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.